how do we build trust in some of the most difficult times in our marriage?
A lot of times when we're talking about the big concept of trust, it's like your fidelity.
And yet so often trust is being undermined in a lot of ways, even more carnal, like more damaging to us as human beings than just my spouse had an affair.
It can really be a trust death by 1,000 cuts. It's the smaller things. Selfishness can be a huge trust breaker.
Right.
I can't trust you with our relationship overall because you're constantly selfish in this relationship, and whereas we should be putting each other first.
Do you present yourself in a way that encourages your spouse to trust you with their heart? You want to serve your spouse.
Right.
You want to love your spouse, treat him kindly, treat her lovingly. You want to do those things. When Andrea gets upset and she says something to me, and I don't respond in kind with a hurtful thing to her, I'm building trust with her, because the first thing you have to do is not destroy trust. One thing that comes up a lot when we talk to couples about marriage is trust. He's lost my trust. She doesn't have any trust with me. He needs to work on building trust. Man, she doesn't trust me. And we find this idea of trust really breaks down the marital relationship. But it's not necessarily trust like I'm afraid he's going to go out and have an affair. It's a more basic, in my opinion, more important element of trust in marriage. And it's one that can easily be blown when we fall out of sync in our marriage, as we all do. But the hope is it's also one that can be increased greatly even through those difficult times. So that's what we want to dig into. How do we make the most of times when we're not in sync to build trust in our marriage?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan Warnock.
I'm Andrea Warnock, and you've joined us for the Marriage by Design podcast, a time where we talk to you about God's design for marriage, what the Bible has to say about that, and how Nathan and I live that out practically.
So you teed up at the end of last season, babe, a show, this show that we're going to do right now, where we were talking about trust. And you had mentioned in your preview to this episode that as you were thinking about this, it reminded you of a verse in Proverbs 14:11, I believe, is what you said it was.
14:1, I think.
14:1. So why don't you read that verse, and then let's unpack a little bit what it is we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so it says, the wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down.
So I want to break this episode today into 3 parts. The first part I want to talk about is just definitional, because the word trust is kind of, I think, a awkward word in the English language. It's probably not unlike love, where we just use the word love in English, but in most other languages, there are way more words for love than just one. I think trust can be a little bit like that too, particularly in marriage. Not maybe from a different word standpoint, but that can mean so many things. And I feel like in marriage, we boil it down to really one thing. And that one thing we need to move on from for purposes of this discussion. So I want to talk a little bit about definitions. Then I want to move into the problem, like what it is we're talking about today that trips people up in marriage. And then I want to talk about the solution and the opportunity.
Yep.
So definitionally, when we talk about trust in marriage, what do we mean most of the time when we're just talking in modern marriage?
Usually, a lot of times when we're talking about the big concept of trust, it's like your fidelity. I'm trusting you to be faithful to our marriage in a lot of ways, but most people think in a sexual way or a relational way.
Right. It's really funny because so often we talk to couples, and what we come to the conclusion of is that there's really a trust issue in this marriage. And either you or I will raise that, and one or the other, or both, of the couple will go, well, she knows I wouldn't ever cheat on her. Or, like, he knows I wouldn't have an affair. like the word trust really, like we're doing it if we're in marriage and we haven't cheated on our spouse. Like that's the marriage accomplishment. And yet so often, right, and yet so often trust is being undermined in ways that are more, in a lot of ways, even more carnal, like more damaging to us as human beings than just my spouse had an affair. And I'm not minimizing spouses that have been cheated on. I wouldn't do that. If you know our story, you know that's a part of our story, and I'm not minimizing that at all.
Yeah, it can really be a trust death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
You know, it's the smaller things that aren't as obvious as like an affair.
Like what? Like what are trust breaches in marriage that are what we're talking about today?
Sure. The smaller things that we're talking about are selfishness. I mean, that selfishness can be a huge trust breaker, because then I feel, you know, if I'm being selfish in our marriage, then you're feeling like, well, I'm putting all this.
I can't trust you to put me first.
Right. I'm putting all this in, or you should be. And I'm not, I can't trust you with my heart.
Right.
I can't trust you with our relationship overall, because you're constantly selfish in this relationship. And whereas we should be putting each other first. So that's one way, just the selfishness. Anything you're doing that's going behind the other person's back, which again doesn't have to be overt, but hey, this is kind of a fidelity thing, but I'm flirting with this woman in the coffee room. It never goes beyond that. I'm a flirty guy, or I'm a flirty girl, and I just have told my spouse. I've heard so many people say this over the years. I'm just flirty. Well, you just need to figure out how not to be, or maybe don't talk to people of the opposite gender. I mean, that's ridiculous, because that can't be. But you need to never talk to the Starbucks lady or whatever. You just need to be only business with people of the opposite gender, then, I guess. If your excuse is, well, I'm just a flirty person.
Sure. I'm glad you brought up business, because that's the one I was thinking of. How many people have said, oh, I need to run to the restroom? And the reason you needed to run to the restroom was because you needed to check your fantasy football team, check your work email, send a couple texts to friends, and you knew it would frustrate your spouse if you did that in that moment. That's a small thing, and you may be listening to this and rolling your eyes and thinking, well, that's not that big of a deal at all. And I would submit to you that that's because you haven't been caught. But I can tell you that those are little lies. I mean, those are like these are similar to these other things you're saying, and it sends the message to your spouse that if I can sneak around you to keep from having an argument, I will.
Or it's maybe not that you haven't been caught, but the other person doesn't want to be. They're hovering over this line of, how am I not nagging and picking on you? But also, there's some of these issues. One way you can break down, small ways you can break down trust, is not keeping your word, which again doesn't have to be a huge thing, but it could be, hey, I'm going to get this project done this weekend, and you just never do.
Right.
And there's not communication about, hey, I'm sorry, something came up, so I'm going to do it this day instead. That breaks down trust. Or when you say, I'm going out with my friends, I should be back around 10. And I know that feels like I should be able to be back for some people. I should be able to be back whenever I want because I'm an adult. Well, yeah, but you told your spouse something. And if you're not going to hold to that, communicate to them. Just, again, it's the small things that are eating away at the trust and really the security of your relationship.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the other one I would say is, and then we'll launch
there's
into
so
the
many
part,
examples, but these are just a few of them.
As we launch into the problem here, the final one I would bring up, and I think it's the most damaging in the area we're about to go to in marriage, the specific application of this, is, and you said it earlier, and I want to repeat what you said. Do you present yourself in a way that encourages your spouse to trust you with their heart? Guys, she's not as into sarcasm as you think she is. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean maybe she's not sarcastic, but when that sarcasm is directed at her in times when you're at odds with each other, that doesn't build trust. And the flip side of that is women can just be really unkind or disrespectful, whatever you want to call it. But I don't always like using the term disrespectful because I feel like sometimes modern women hear that as a submission word. And I don't mean it as a submission word. What I really think it boils down to is you're just mean.
Yeah.
Like you're just not kind with your words. And that turns your spouse off towards trusting you with who they are.
Yeah.
So what we want to talk about today isn't just how do we build trust, but how do we build trust in some of the most difficult times in our marriage?
Yeah. Well, and let me plug in this. We talked about Proverbs 14:1. The wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down. And that could be applied to so many different scenarios. But how we're using it here is when we choose to put the other person first and we choose to put integrity and trust first in all areas, we're being wise with our relationship and with the marriage that God has given us. Yep. But we can so easily pick at the foundation and cut it down when we're choosing these things that we were talking about.
Right. So times when we're at odds in our marriage, we could probably go back and forth and say like, oh, a time like this or a time like this. What I boil it down to is like, there's an old legal adage. I'm an attorney by background, as many of you know. There's an old legal adage when the Supreme Court was considering the idea of what was obscene. And one of the justices famously, when trying to define what obscene meant, said, I don't really know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. That's kind of how it is in marriage. Because, yeah, sometimes there's overt fights, but a lot of times there's just seasons, maybe an hour, a day, maybe a week, where maybe longer, where you just feel like my wife and I, my husband and I are just not on the same page. And oftentimes those times can get combative in marriage. And oftentimes it's in those seasons that this trust we're talking about falters. Because when times are good, you want to serve your spouse. Right. You want to love your spouse, treat him kindly, treat her lovingly. You want to do those things. When things aren't going good,
in the natural, you want to put up the defenses.
Right.
And your defense is to protect myself, which means I'm putting myself first.
Right.
And I'm putting you behind me, and I don't want to serve you. I don't want to think of you first. Right. I don't want to put the Lord first in our marriage. It's really, I'm trying to put up a wall to protect my heart.
Right. And oftentimes that defense can look like shying away, not wanting to engage my spouse in meaningful healing conversation, just totally stiff-arming her or him out of my life for a time. Sometimes there are people who think that the best defense is a good offense. I know some people like that, and that can be really difficult too, because then rather than being standoffish, it's a much more in-your-face, sort of angry, wall that gets put up. And whether it's the withdrawn type or the more, offensive type, what ends up happening is we can both be in a position where we sort of turn inward and start taking care of me and caring about me. Yep. Because I'm just sort of in defensive mode. But the problem is it becomes a death spiral because you see me doing that, and what you see is that I don't care for you, which hurts trust, and you can respond to that out of anger or sadness. I see you acting out of that and go, well, I can't trust her to care for me. I'm hurting here, and I just showed her I'm hurting by throwing up sarcasm or whatever all over her. She saw that, and yet she's reacting poorly to me. I can't trust her with my heart, and we start going down this trust
down the toilet. Yeah.
Right. So identifying those times, I think, is really critical. And at least for you and I, and we've been married almost 21 years now, we've come to a place where I think we recognize those times early on. And sometimes we just say that. Like, there are times when we've just said, like, for me, frustratingly, like, we're just not on the same wavelength right now. And oftentimes we can even put our finger like broadly on what the problem is. It's a busy season in school. It's baseball season. We're running around all the time. It's, whatever it is. A lot of times we can diagnose that, but just saying it to each other, I think in and of itself helps to build trust, because it sort of says to each of us that we both know this is going on. And at least how I think I mean it at this point is like, hey, I'm on guard that I know I'm going to be tempted to like want to drop kick you. Yeah. And I want you to know I know that, and I'm trying to process through this in ways that are constructive and not ways that damage trust.
Yeah, and you have to also, when you hear that, not choose victim mentality and choose instead to be like, okay, well, we need to get in this ship together.
Yeah, what do you mean
and
by
row in the right way?
Mentality?
Always feeling like what you say is against me. And honestly, when you're in that death spiral, at least for me, and I think there's a decent amount of maybe women or men, I don't know, people out there that feel like, well, you're against me. So everything you say, not everything you say, but anytime you're frustrated, it's because you're frustrated with me and you're trying to hurt me with that. Anytime you huff, it's at me. Anytime you moan, it's, like, ugh, whatever, it's at me. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you're in the death spiral. So you don't have, you're not thinking of your spouse as a good-willed person.
Right.
And so when he says whatever it is, we're struggling, or we're not on the same team or whatever, rather than being like, oh, well, now you're blaming me for that, whatever it is, take that as, okay, then we need to work together. Okay, let's work together, rather than seeing it as a fight that's trying to happen, or right. He's picking on me, or he's blaming me, or whatever that is.
Right. So that kind of launches us into the third part of this discussion, which is the hopeful part, right? What do we do about this? I mean, a big piece of this podcast is not just diagnosing a problem, but helping people that are experiencing this now to know what to do about it.
Well, I'll tell you first, go to the Lord. That's always the first. And of course, it's so obvious, but how many times do we have an issue? And that's like the fifth thing or the last thing that we do is to go to the Lord. I don't know why, but it's a frustrating ththing about me too, is that I try to just start doing things rather than going to the Lord first. So
yeah, and I would say, just because I think we hit it just a second ago, my only disagreement with that would be, I think the first thing is realizing you're in this place.
Sure.
Like once like we were just talking about, I mean, once you come to a place where you're like, because there are times where you and I'll have cross words, and then we move on. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Yeah, that's
and I don't mean move on like sweep it under the rug. I mean, we had something we disagreed on. Maybe it even got a little heated, and then we moved on.
Right. There's no ongoing issue.
Right. There are times
or ongoing issues that are creating a bigger problem.
Right. There are times when that happens, and then the next day, it kind of feels still like there's something there, and it just kind of keeps going and
devolving.
And you realize pretty quick, like, okay, this is a season of life thing we're going to need to work through as a couple. So once we do that, I completely agree with you, and I'm not good at it either. Like, going to the Lord, like, it's one thing to tell you, like, hey, I know we're not like jiving right now, and I'm like, let's just get through this together. It's another thing to go like, hey, I'm praying about that.
Not even that. You know what's better than that? Come to your spouse and be like, let's go to the Lord together right now. Because there's something about approaching the Lord together, especially when you don't want to.
100%.
That just knocks down your own pride, your spouse's pride. Yep. The issues that you have they get put in their place as far as the significance or insignificance of them. Yep. When you are willing to approach the Lord together, and usually in those moments, that's like the last thing you want to do is go together. It's easier to be like, I'll pray about it, you pray about it, but instead choose to go to the Lord together. So that's one thing. There's a lot in the Bible, of course, that talks about trusting in the Lord, and I'll talk about a couple of those things. So in those times where we feel like our spouse has just cut in small ways at our relationship, and I'm lacking in my security of my heart, I'm not feeling secure emotionally in this relationship The Lord says in Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, which is a great way of saying don't try to fix this yourself. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Psalm 37:5 says, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. And then Isaiah 26:3, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Jeremiah 17:7-8. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water. I want you to notice that in nowhere in there did it say, trust in your emotions. So in that Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. So often our emotions and our own thoughts lead us astray from God's truth. Don't rely on those for truth. Trust in the Lord for your truth.
Yeah.
And he is trustworthy. In those moments where you feel like my spouse is not trustworthy in these small ways, and I'm not sure if I can trust him or her, with the security in who we are, the security of our relationship or whatever that is, you can trust the Lord. And trust that the Lord created your spouse, knows him better than you do, and knows how to get at his heart better than you do. So there may be moments where you're like, I'm really struggling emotionally to commit to trying to get on the ship together because I just want to be at odds with you, or I'm struggling to put you first over myself. I'm struggling to put my spouse first because I don't feel like he's doing that for me, or whatever that is. Know that the Lord's ways are better than our ways. So are his thoughts better than our thoughts. You can trust in him. He will give you peace. He will continue to renew your mind if you allow him to.
That's great. So identify that you're not in a great place. Take that to the Lord individually.
Ideally together and individually. Yep.
And then lean into, what I hear you saying is lean into the spiritual reality that the things that I'm feeling are not necessarily truth. Like the things that I'm feeling, I'm not saying they're not true that you're feeling them.
Right.
I'm saying there's a reality of what it means to be human, which is that we feel things because our flesh feels them, and they're real.
Yeah.
But they're not true.
But don't let them guide you.
T.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't let them guide you.
Right. And that's, I think, was my question for you then. Because I think, I can hear people going, well, what does this have anything to do with building trust? Well, because the first thing you have to do is not destroy trust. Like, in order to build trust, the first thing we have to do is not destroy it. Yeah. And so often our emotions lead us to destroying trust, not building trust.
Right.
And here's the amazing thing, and this is kind of where I want to end on. If you can perfect not destroying trust in difficult times, you're building trust in difficult times. Like, that's the cool part about what we're talking about, is when Andrea gets upset and maybe says something that, because her emotions get the better of her, and she says something to me, and I don't respond in kind with a hurtful thing to her, I'm building trust with her that I am willing to care for her heart even when she doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, so let me give you a real life example. Nathan and I used to have these marathon arguments, right? And he's great at analyzing things, and he's great at being a lawyer and all of that. And he wanted to be right, and he also wanted to get this argument finished. So leaving an argument on the table unfinished to him is ridiculous, right? So we would have these disagreements, and something would happen where I would be super hurt or super angry, and I would say, I need some time I need some time away. We can come back to this, but I need some time away, because I wasn't ready to engage with you because I was really frustrated, really mad at you for whatever happened in the fight. For him, that felt wrong, because he thought, well, we need to finish this, and I have all these points that I need to make and all that sort of thing. And so for so long, that then we were off on a bunny trail, and that became the fight, because I'm like, I need I'm not walking away from this. I will come back. I just need some time to process or like rein my emotions, and I'm so angry. And over a period of a long time, we started to understand each other with that. And now if I can't even tell you the last time we had that kind of a fight. But now if we have an argument where I'm like, I need 10 minutes. So I've learned he needs me to say a time that I'm going to come back to this because he doesn't want to feel like it's just being swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And he has recognized like I genuinely need that time. I'm not sweeping something under the rug. I need some time to calm down so that I don't sin with my words or my anger or whatever that is. So he's built trust in when I say that. He's like, okay, all right, we'll come back in, So I'm building trust in saying, I'll come back to this in 10 minutes or later tonight or whatever that is. And I do. I come back and I say, okay, we need to finish this. And he builds trust in
giving me that time.
Then that's a
good example.
So it took a long time to get to that, but it's putting each other first and putting each other's and choosing to live in an understanding way with each other. Not something that, it's not ideal for him. It's not ideal for me, but we've figured it out and how to really build trust in those moments. So when things are kind of breaking down at the moment, we're still building each other up and building trust and really putting the Lord first and our marriage first over the immediate situation.
That's a great example. Okay. So here's the wrap up. First thing, recognize trust is so much more than sexual fidelity. Trust is a thing we need to be serious about building every day with our spouse, certainly in the area of fidelity, but also in the area of how we care for their heart, how we care for them physically, spiritually, emotionally. We need to be serious about building trust every day in our marriage. Seasons are going to come in your marriage when you're not on the same page. Might be way on different pages, might be just feeling a little off. These seasons are going to come and go. In those seasons, we don't have to lose trust in our marriage. In fact, in those seasons, we can take advantage of those times to allow the Lord to take us to new levels of trust within our marriage. If we recognize them, if we take it to the Lord first as individuals and as couples, and then if we take control of our own emotions through the Holy Spirit, allow the Lord to shine through us, and recognize that it is imperative upon us to trust in the Lord to get us through those times, not to trust into our own understanding of our own emotions and where we're at in those moments. Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate you being a part of the Marriage by Design community. If you have, as you've gone through these seasons, found something that works for you and your spouse, maybe there's a little trick you have, a way that you help to get yourselves out of these times without losing trust, love to see those in the comments section down below. Love to hear what all you guys do to practically build trust during difficult times. So please put those in the comments below. We would love to hear them. Until next time, thanks so much for joining Andrea and I here on the Marriage by Design podcast. Remember, God is for your marriage.